I remember as a kid, my dad was like, this is not something we consistently do, but we can go get a scratch it ticket. And like, that was the original way of gambling, for lack of better words. I think it's a lot now. And it's not really something that's interesting to me because people who know me really, really well, they know if I'm betting and I'm putting the house on something, I got an unfair advantage. No Free Lunch is presented by T. Rowe Price. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. I'm Ndamukong Suh, and welcome to No Free Lunch, where we talk to experts and athletes about how the most successful people in sports manage their money and grow their wealth. Danny, we are back at it again, about to talk to our contributor, our guy, Chris Lyons. What are we going to talk about this time? I know it's about sports betting, but it's something unique around sports betting.
Yeah, no, our guy, Chris, it's funny when we get to talk to him. He's always in the cutting edge of stuff, from wine to technology to VC. And we were in New York and he was talking about this thing, this predictive market thing.
I remember this vividly. I was predictive marketing. I don't really know much about that.
Yeah, essentially, and once again, Chris will explain it better than we can, but it's just sports betting. You know, that's one thing, you know, the fantasy football, the over and under on a game, a point spread.
I still don't get that stuff, but there's method to the madness, and that's why I'm not a bookie and or have anything to do with gambling. I've been censored from that stuff at an early age.
Yes, Sammy, athletes, it's always been taboo, but it's becoming more prevalent. It's on your phones. There's apps. There's all the different big betting services. But yeah, this predictive market thing, you can bet on essentially events in the real world. So I'm interested. I'm not even going to act like I know what it is just yet beyond just my research for this episode, but Chris will dive into it. One thing though for you, over and under, how many more trips for teams or family Suh this year? 3. Over and under family trips for the rest of the year.
Over or under?
Yeah.
Wow. I have an unfair advantage because I control that. So.
Right. See?
but what's on the books right now? Definitely over. We're a busybody family. I'm a busybody in myself, as we know. And I hate being without my family, my wife and my boys, and even extended family. So, we've got some trips. I got some exciting ones that I haven't told you about yet. Okay. So we'll see where this comes into play, and maybe you can jump in on some of these trips.
Look, my bags are already packed at the door, bro. Well, let's get into it. I'm excited.
No, I'm excited, man. Let's get right to it right here on No Free Lunch. My guy, Chris, man, always good to see you.
What's happening?
Not much, man. I want to get into this predictive marketing piece that we talked about back in New York when we were together. And initially it reminds me of sports betting, but it seems like it's much more than that. And overall, in my opinion, it just seems like fans have the ability to kind of bet on sports for the better or worse at any point in time. In any particular thing, like, am I going to get the first sack? Am I going to get the first penalty? Am I
exactly.
What is it? Like, there's like no limits now in this day and age. So let's talk about predictive markets.
You've been in the league, so I'm curious, even just what do you think on this piece, since it's, definitely legalized in so many different states now? Like, how do you think just the perception of sports betting in general has changed amongst fans?
It's interesting because, I've always been wired at an early age. Even prior to getting into college, I remember as a kid, my dad was like, this is not something we consistently do, but we can go get a scratch it ticket. And like, that was the original way of gambling, for lack of better words. And we would look at the lottery and we look at those different particular things. And that was kind of it, to where it's evolved to now, and especially in college sports, where we're not allowed to be part of fantasy. We're not allowed to be a part of any of those things. I've never been really into it, but I have friends now that like it's on their phone and they're mad because
every second.
I'm not in this state, so I can't really make this bet. But let me go across the line and I can go do the bet, or I have somebody else do it for me. So it's super interesting to kind of see where it is. I think it's a lot now. And it's not really something that's interesting to me because people who know me really, really well, they know if I'm betting and I'm putting the house on something, I got an unfair advantage. So I got some inside information.
Exactly. My family told me never bet on nothing you don't, you know, for 100% you're not going to win on. So that's why I don't got bet.
No control over it. At least have some control over it.
Exactly. So no, it's an interesting world, but I think that, you know, it gets fans engaged in a completely different way. And, you know, there is some fun to it, but it's definitely a new dynamic, especially with the legalization of it, like you said, in certain states, and, you know, more so just how it's really changing the game in general and people's viewership of the sport.
Yeah. So explain to the audience what prediction markets are, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So basically, super high level, prediction markets are exchanges where people can buy and sell different contracts, and they're, you know, tied to the outcome of future events. So, for example, each contract is, you know, pretty binary. So it's like a yes or no. For example, like, will the Feds raise rates by 0.25% in September? Yes or no, right? And then you place a trade.
Hold on. We don't want rates raising. We want them dropping.
Well, then that's where you place your bet. You know, so like, and so
let's
you can
not
put
even
that
have
question.
that as an option. There's no raising rates. It's dropping rates.
We need them. We need it to go down. So then you put the note. So then you place a bet, you know, on that, and then the trade between, normally it's around $0 and $1, and, you know, that's like basically represents the probability of this happening. And so, you know, if the actual contract trades at like 65%, then that means that they're saying there's a 65% chance that it's going to be yes. And then, you know, if it actually happens, then you get paid that $1 quote, just as an example. And if not, then, you know, you lose it. And so, like most prediction markets, they, you know, live in regulatory gray zones. And so that there's this whole new world that's happening, where companies and people are just really starting to become CFTC regulated.
So Chris, with that, like, sorry to interrupt, just with that, like, who decides the odds of these predictions and who's the ultimate decision maker? And like, how does that all come about? And then also who's paying the user at the end of the day?
Well, the funny part is that, you know, there is no, you know, the market itself actually is the people that really decide whether or not what's going on. So there is no house, you know, so to speak, when it comes to setting the odds in like a traditional sports book. And so the prices themselves are normally determined by supply and demand on the exchange. So, for example, if more people are buying yes on the inflation, then that means that the contracts itself will rise from there. And so, so then you'll have different market makers, so that, you know, from there that will provide different liquidity, you know, by constantly quoting, buying and selling different prices. And so basically, you know, the TLDR is that the odds of the last traded price kind of represent what the market's, you know, collective probability of what that thing is actually going to be.
Got it. And do you think this is going to cannibalize sports betting? Why or why not, from your perspective?
I mean, not directly, but I mean, there is some overlap. So, for example, sports betting is really just about outcomes of the games, right? So teams winning, going over and under, player props, you name it. But prediction markets are a little bit of a different ecosystem, where they're covering, you know, things like economics, you know, situations, political outcomes, though even things as simple as like the weather, or cultural outcomes on like what color, you know, dress is Beyonce going to wear to the Grammys, you know, and so things like that. So, and also the regulatory framework is just a little bit different. So sports betting is more so regulated by state gaming commissions. And then prediction markets are kind of CFTC regulated on different event contracts. And it's more so pitched as hedging instruments as opposed to traditional gambling.
Okay, got it. I mean, I don't know if this is to be true, but I've been to Dubai a couple times, and I hear that they have the ability to make clouds and create rain. So I'm trying to do some weather predictions in Dubai and say, oh, it's about to rain today. Let's make a $1 million bet on this bad boy. So
right, hey, well, you know, or you could be with Lil Wayne and make it rain. So it depends on that.
That's very true. So.
You can place your bet on that.
Yeah, I like that. When it comes to the biggest players and the forward thought leaders, who are those players and platforms that you're envisioning that are going to control the space or be kind of who are the first movers, for lack of better words, at this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there's a couple different players right now that are really leading the way. One is a company called Kalshi, and, it is CFTC regulated. So that's kind of a competitive advantage that they have. Another one, which is also extremely popular, is called Polymarket. Okay. But that's more so, they have a little bit of a different kind of gray area, and they originally started internationally and then, became, a market leader as well too. So I think that between those two, it's a fun race to discover where the new world's going.
Okay. And when you're looking at this, because we talked about Lil Wayne making it rain, and we talking about Dubai, what part of this concept is more strategy versus really betting?
It's more prediction based. So it's more so odds driven as opposed to traditional gambling, from a technical standpoint. And also this idea around hedging. And, what does that look like from just the bigger picture in how these things can really matter. So like, for example, price discovery is a little bit different. So you can aggregate real-time sentiments about future events. And sometimes that's even more accurate than traditional polls or forecasts, right?
Yeah.
And then also you have like things where you can use prediction markets for risk management. So you can let businesses kind of hedge against things like interest rates move, inflation, weather disruptions. And then the other thing, which is a little bit different than gambling, is that prediction markets are kind of providing a little bit more just speculation and engagement. So it's cool because it's really just creating a new financial product category that can pull in not just like Wall Street, but also everyday traders as well too. So you can have anybody that can get involved into this.
Yeah, which you bring up a great point, because that's where I wanted to go next from a standpoint of like, it seems like it's very similar to investing in stocks. And this is obviously a great opportunity for a new viable revenue stream. But also at that same time, like you look at stocks and how certain events, like we talked about interest rates and things like that, can affect those stocks and whatnot and those pieces. How does this kind of all come together? From that standpoint, but then also like, how do you kind of combat insider trading at the same time, if we're looking at it from a stock perspective?
Just like traditional stocks or any type of investment, I mean, there's going to be risk, when it comes to these type of things, and you have to kind of keep it. You have to always, non-financial advice, like, do your own research. And when you're thinking about these investments, especially when you're dealing with dollars. And so, in stocks, traditional insider trading rules are kind of like SEC oversights. And like you have the SEC, which prevents people with non-public information from actually profiting on trades. But, right now, to be honest, in prediction markets, it's a little bit less defined. But exactly. But the regulators like the CFTC, for example, like with Kalshi, are actively considering these things. And I think that, we're going to probably see more clarity as this market continues to expand. I think that's the beauty of it. I think a great example is kind of like with crypto. Like it was a brand new world, it was a whole new world. And we've had to, constantly create rules as these new technologies evolve. Even something as simple as like Airbnb, there was no rules for you renting out your home like an Airbnb because they created a brand new market. And so once these things happen,
So you bring up Airbnb, and that's an interesting correlation, because I also look at it like Airbnb, bro, man, this is my house. I paid for it. I own the mortgage. I'm responsible for this mortgage. I'm doing as I please. Like, and if I choose to have a platform and I want to rent it out, and whoever it is, VRBO, Airbnb, whoever it is, like, I'm going to pay them their fee and move on. Like, why does the city have any regulation from this? And yes, all right, cool. I may be doing it out of a complex as long as I'm not affecting other people within reason. But if I also chose to live in a complex with multiple other people, I have to interact with people no matter what. If you don't want to interact with people, well, guess what? Go get you a farm out 10 acres by yourself and go live out there. So it's like you carve your cat in so many different ways. So it's always interesting how people have those different perspectives. But I mean, yes, it is evolving and changing as we continue to move down the road. And it's exciting to see at the same time. And I think this is where people, true capitalism is able to come into play at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I think it's an exciting time. It's like, it offers a lot of insights. And sometimes people think that prediction markets can actually be more accurate than traditional polls. Even when you're using things, whether it's incorporating blockchain on top of that verifies the actual transaction coming specifically from your wallet that you verified with your account. You could see opportunities in companies like that happening. I mean, we all hope that we can get away from, the old school voting system. And I think that we have the tools and the technology. We just need the government to come and continually adopt these things. But that's the beauty of what we're seeing with these next generation of founders, is that, going out and putting these tools and these services available immediately so that, we can then have those discussions. These prediction markets are definitely a step in that right direction. Fingers crossed.
What do you envision could potentially be some other use cases that are similar along those lines, or just something completely opposite from that perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think, for example, like you have obviously on the macroeconomic side. Just like the inflation type of unemployment, being able to do predictions on that in order to get better understanding on where, the future of our government is going to be moving things. You have different corporate and business events. So will Apple launch a foldable iPhone in 2026, right? Okay. And being able to have something like that, or will Tesla's revenue exceed $25 billion. So different, like really just diving into corporate things from there. You have, obviously, we talked about the weather, global risk.
Like, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. But then you're really getting, the like very unbiased, predictions, and people and from all around the world kind of having these conversations. I mean, obviously cultural and social events. And I do think that crossing over with sports betting is going to be a thing, or like, will there be one more Matrix movie, or, type of things like, and these are things that they're simple, but like people, can use that to really gather information. And if, so many people, will Sue come back for one more season?
Hey, man, I'm retired, man.
Hey, come on. The Eagles are looking good, man. Come on. We need you.
They looking good, but they don't need me right now. I know. I may be a coach, or hey, man, I'll come back for just the Super Bowl. Let's do that. There
we go. Well, we'll Sue come back for one more game, yes or no. We'll put that on there. So I think that those are some of the things that obviously we have. It's as a financial product as well too. And then I think the last thing is just kind of like organizational stuff. So like, will have, this thing launch on time. You could do this as internally. So from a company standpoint, you could actually, have a prediction internally within your teams and kind of have different projects like that. So I think that, it starts off very macro, but you could eventually have micro predictive things that could actually help encourage people to either get it done or see what the truth is within a company.
So it's interesting. You say macro side of things, but then if we do go to micro viewpoints of it, how do you envision the user case being user friendly in those different pieces? Because you think then you start to have these siloed companies have these certain specific focuses. And is it an app, or is it you got to go on the internet, or you got to go on a web browser? How does that all kind of come together currently? And then also, what does it potentially look like in the future?
Yeah. So the current user it's kind of like, think Robinhood meets like DraftKings, right? So it's like just traditional browser experience where user sees a dashboard of available markets. So you can say, will this candidate win the nomination? Will it rain more than 3 inches in New York City? And then each market then shows kind of like a yes or no on the price. Mm-hmm. So like 68 cents, yes, 32% no. And then on the website that they also have like a probability display. So, if it's yes, it'll often show 68% chance yes. And that makes it feel kind of a little bit less abstract than just trading in a traditional option contract. And then you have just the ticket itself where you just press yes or no and for the buyout. And so then you could figure out how many you want to buy. You could buy 100 contracts of yes at 40 cents. And so that means you spent $40, and the max payout that you would get if it was yes was $100. And so then the UI itself will then show just the different risk versus the reward. So it'll be $40, but then the reward would be $60. And so it just makes it very simple in terms of what you're getting when you're actually putting out these transactions.
Okay.
And then the last part is the cool part is that after the event happens, the contracts will automatically cash out. And so then then they'll be updated very much like a traditional brokerage account.
No, that's dope. So it's instantaneously you win. You get your chicken.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You got to get the chicken.
Well, Chris, this has been amazing to talk about this prediction markets. Excited to continue to talk more about it and learn about it, man. Pleasure always to see you as well.
Absolutely. No, it's good catching up, and make sure you we'll make a bet on what the weather looks like for next week, and we'll tune in next time to see who wins.
Well, we got to figure out what part of the world I'm going to be in first before we start picking the weather.
I'm with it. Exactly. Yeah, you might have unfair advantage depending on where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. It's time for the Confidently Curious question, where we ask questions that are one step ahead. Sponsored by T. Rowe Price, where they believe that asking better questions can lead to better outcomes. So my Confidently Curious question of the day is, when you earn interest on both your original principal amount and on the interest you've earned on it, that's called A, compound interest, B, simple interest, C, accrued interest. The answer is A, compound interest. I learned about compound interest via the rule of 72. So if I gave somebody $1,000 and over a 7-year period of time, they gave me a 10% interest return, well, guess what? That now $1,000 will be $2,000. Vice versa, over a 10-year period of time, if I gave somebody $1,000 and they gave me a 7% return, that again, $1,000 would be $2,000 after that. That's our Confidently Curious question for the week. Thanks to our sponsor, T. Rowe Price, for modeling the power of better questions in their approach to making better investment decisions. T. Rowe Price proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. What a great conversation with Chris, man. I think my biggest takeaway that I have from that conversation is that prediction markets is just in its infancy stages. And it's something that your world is your oyster at the end of the day of what you can really bet on. And I think it's a cross-pollination of what Chris was saying is like what the open world is, plus DraftKings, and then also a little bit of kind of that open-ended world of crypto. So we got a lot to learn, and I think we're just scratching the surface, and we got to start to study and understand where things are going to continue to move. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to No Free Lunch on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.